Episode 1. Lemuel Gulliver, the intrepid traveler, stood on the deck of the Antelope, gazing at the horizon where the sky kissed the boundless ocean. His heart throbbed with the promise of adventures untold. This was the beginning of his voyage, one that would take him to lands beyond imagination. The storm in the land of Lilliput, a fierce storm, erupted on the fourth day of their voyage. Waves rose like mountains, and the Antelope groaned under the strain. Despite their best efforts, the ship succumbed, breaking apart. Clinging to a fragment of wood, Gulliver was tossed mercilessly by the waves until, at dawn, he found himself washed ashore on an unfamiliar island. Exhausted, he collapsed into a deep slumber. When he awoke, he found himself unable to move. Thin cords bound his limbs to the ground, and dozens of tiny men, no taller than 6 inches, were clambering over him. They chattered in a language he could not understand. These were the Lilliputians, the inhabitants of this strange land. They viewed Gulliver as both a marvel and a potential threat. After a cautious negotiation and much pointing and gesturing, Gulliver won their trust. Over time, he learned their language and customs, marveling at their ingenuity. The Lilliputians were embroiled in a bitter conflict with a neighboring nation, Blefuscu. The cause of the war was laughably trivial, a disagreement over the proper way to crack an egg. Despite the absurdity, the war was intense. Gulliver, with his immense size, became a pivotal figure in the conflict, pulling Blefuscu's fleet to shore single-handedly, thus ending the war. However, Gulliver's immense size also made him a liability. Fearing his power, the Lilliputians plotted to blind him and starve him to death. Learning of their treachery, Gulliver escaped to Blefuscu, where he eventually found a means to return home. The giants of Brobdingnag, no sooner had Gulliver settled back into his mundane life than his restless spirit called him to the sea again. On his next voyage, a sudden storm drove his ship off course, leaving him stranded on the shores of Brobdingnag, a land of giants. Here, Gulliver was the miniature creature, his diminutive size making him a curiosity. He was discovered by a farmer, who placed him in a box and took him home. The farmer's daughter, Glumblclitch, became his caretaker, treating him with kindness and teaching him the language. Brobdingnagians were towering figures of immense strength, but their society was simpler and less advanced than Gulliver's own. The king, upon hearing Gulliver's tales of England, scoffed at the corruption and violence of human societies, comparing them unfavorably to his own kingdom's values of morality and justice. Though Gulliver enjoyed his time in Brobdingnag, he was constantly in danger. Dogs mistook him for a toy, birds tried to carry him away, and once, he narrowly escaped being crushed by a falling apple. Eventually, a giant eagle snatched up the box he was kept in and dropped it into the sea, where he was rescued by a passing ship. The floating island of Laputa. Gulliver's next voyage took him to Laputa, a floating island inhabited by scholars and scientists. The Laputans were so consumed by abstract thought that they were often oblivious to their surroundings. Their heads were tilted to one side, and they relied on servants to smack them with inflated bladders to bring them back to the present moment. The Laputans' obsession with impractical experiments fascinated and bewildered Gulliver.